Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. And if you're new here, welcome. You have just found your new favorite place to explore the world one country at a time. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a single episode. Today we are packing our bags, grabbing our sunscreen, and heading all the way down under. Because today we are talking about one of the most extraordinary, breathtaking, and downright fascinating countries on the entire planet, Australia. That is right. The land of kangaroos, golden beaches, deadly creatures, and some of the friendliest people you will ever meet in your life. But here's the thing about Australia. It is so much more than the cliches. So much more than the postcard images of the Sydney Opera House or the dusty red rock of Uluru. Australia is a country that will genuinely blow your mind the more you learn about it. And by the end of this video, I promise you, you are going to be either booking a flight or at least wishing you could. So sit back, relax, and let us take a deep dive into the incredible world of Australia. Its geography, its cities, its people, its wildlife, its economy, and so much more. Let us get into it. Let us start with something that makes Australia truly one of a kind, something that no other place on Earth can say. Australia is simultaneously a country and a continent. Yes, you heard that right. It is the only nation on Earth that occupies an entire continent all by itself. Think about that for a moment. Every other continent is shared between multiple countries, but Australia? Australia said, no thank you, this whole landmass is mine. That alone puts it in a category that no other country can claim. And it gives you a first glimpse into just how vast, how unique, and how spectacular this place really is. In terms of size, Australia is the 6th largest country in the world by total land area, covering approximately 7.7 million square kilometers. To put that in perspective, Australia is almost as large as the entire continental United States of America, and it is roughly the same size as the whole of Europe. It is massive, absolutely enormous. And yet, despite all that land, Australia has a population of only around 27 million people, making it one of the most sparsely populated countries on Earth. That means there are vast stretches of this continent, millions and millions of square kilometers, where almost no one lives. It is a land of incredible space, incredible silence, and incredible natural beauty. Now let us talk geography, because Australia's physical landscape is one of the most fascinating and diverse on the planet. Australia is located in the southern hemisphere, in the region known as Oceania, positioned between the Indian Ocean to the west and the Pacific Ocean to the east. It is surrounded by water on all sides, and its isolation from the rest of the world for millions of years has had a profound effect on its ecosystems, its wildlife, and even its culture. But we will get to all of that in a moment. Geographically speaking, Australia can be divided into several distinct regions. Along the eastern and southeastern coast, you have fertile, green, and relatively densely populated areas where most of Australia's cities are found. Move inland, however, and the landscape transforms dramatically. The further you go from the coasts, the drier, hotter, and more remote the terrain becomes, until eventually you reach what Australians simply call the Outback, a vast, sun-scorched, red-earthed interior that stretches across the heart of the continent. The Outback is one of the most remote and inhospitable places on Earth, a landscape of ancient desert, dramatic rock formations, and eerie silence that stretches seemingly without end. It is hauntingly beautiful, genuinely dangerous if you are unprepared, and absolutely unlike anywhere else in the world. Within this extraordinary landscape, there are several natural features that stand out as truly iconic and world-class. First, there is Uluru, also known as Ayers Rock, a magnificent sandstone monolith that rises dramatically from the flat red desert of the Northern Territory. Uluru stands 348 meters above the ground and has a circumference of nearly 10 kilometers. But what makes it truly special is not just its physical scale, it is the deep spiritual and cultural significance it holds for the Anang people, the indigenous Australians who have called this land home for over 60,000 years. Uluru is sacred, and visiting it is a truly humbling and awe-inspiring experience. Then, of course, there's the Great Barrier Reef, the world's largest coral reef system, stretching over 2,300 kilometers along the northeastern coast of Queensland. It is so big that it can actually be seen from space, and it is home to an almost incomprehensible diversity of marine life. Over 1,500 species of fish, 4,000 types of mollusk, 240 species of birds, and countless other creatures that call this underwater paradise home. The Great Barrier Reef is one of the 7 natural wonders of the world, and it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And then there is the Great Dividing Range, Australia's longest mountain chain, running all the way down the eastern side of the continent for about 3,500 kilometers, from Queensland in the north, all the way down through New South Wales and Victoria to the tip of Tasmania in the south. This mountain range plays a crucial role in Australia's climate and water supply, and it creates a dramatic natural border between the lush coastal regions and the dry interior. Australia also boasts more than 10,000 beaches. Yes, 10,000 beaches, making it one of the most coastline-rich countries in the world, with some of the most beautiful stretches of sand and surf you will ever lay eyes on. Now, let us talk about where Australians actually live. And specifically, let us talk about the cities, because Australian cities are some of the most vibrant, livable, and exciting urban environments anywhere in the world. The capital city of Australia is Canberra, and this is one of those fun geography facts that surprises a lot of people, because many people assume the capital is Sydney. But no, Canberra was purpose-built as the capital city in the early 20th century, deliberately designed as a compromise between the two rival cities of Sydney and Melbourne, both of which wanted to be the capital. Canberra is a planned city, beautifully laid out around an artificial lake called Lake Burley-Griffin, and it is home to Australia's major national institutions: the Parliament House, the Australian War Memorial, the National Gallery, and many more. It is a sophisticated, green, and culturally rich city, even if it does not always get the same attention as Australia's more famous urban centres. Because when most people think of Australian cities, they think of Sydney. And honestly, the hype is completely justified. Sydney is Australia's largest city, home to over 5 million people, and it is one of the most recognizable and photographed cities on Earth. The Sydney Opera House, with its iconic sail-shaped roof, is one of the greatest architectural achievements of the 20th century. The Sydney Harbour Bridge, known affectionately by locals as the Coat Hanger, is an engineering marvel that has become as much a symbol of Australia as the kangaroo itself. Sydney has world-class beaches like Bondi and Manly, a buzzing food and art scene, and an energy and optimism that makes it endlessly magnetic. Then there's Melbourne, the cultural capital of Australia, a city that absolutely buzzes with creativity, diversity, and personality. Melbourne is famous for its laneway culture, its world-beating coffee scene, its street art, its live music, its incredible food diversity, and its passionate sports culture. Melbourne regularly tops global rankings as one of the world's most livable cities, and anyone who has spent time there will tell you it deserves every bit of that reputation. Brisbane, the capital of Queensland, is a sunny, laid-back, and rapidly growing city that hosted the 1982 Commonwealth Games and will host the 2032 Olympic Games, a sign of how much this city has grown in confidence and ambition. And then there is Perth, arguably one of the most isolated major cities on Earth, located on the far western coast and closer to Singapore than it is to Sydney. Perth is a beautiful, sun-drenched city with a relaxed lifestyle, stunning beaches, and a booming economy driven largely by the mining sector. The most important thing to understand about where Australians live, though, is this. The vast majority, somewhere between 85 and 90% of the entire population, live in or near the cities, and most of those cities are clustered along the coasts. The interior of the country, that vast and dramatic outback, is almost entirely empty by comparison. And speaking of the people, let us talk about who actually lives in Australia, because the story of Australia ES population is one of the most interesting and complex in the world. At its heart, Australia is a multicultural nation, one of the most genuinely diverse and multicultural countries on Earth. The official language is English, and the culture has deep roots in its British colonial history. Australia was colonized by Britain beginning in 1788, and that history has shaped everything from the legal system to the sport to the cultural values of the country. But over the past century, and especially since the Second World War, Australia has been transformed by wave after wave of immigration from all over the world. Italian, Greek, Chinese, Vietnamese, Indian, Lebanese, Filipino, and countless other communities have all made Australia their home, bringing with them their food, their languages, their traditions, and their energy, and weaving all of it together into the rich and vibrant multicultural tapestry that Australia is today. Walk down the streets of Melbourne or Sydney, and you will hear dozens of languages, smell cuisines from every corner of the globe, and encounter a diversity that is genuinely remarkable. But at the heart of Australian identity, and this is something that deserves to be said clearly and with real respect, are the Indigenous Australians, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, who are the original inhabitants of this land. Indigenous Australians have lived on this continent for over 60,000 years, making their culture one of the oldest continuously living cultures in the entire history of the human race. 60,000 years. That number is almost impossible to fully comprehend. Their connection to the land, their oral traditions, their art, their spirituality, and their knowledge systems represent an extraordinary and irreplaceable part of human heritage. Australia's relationship with its Indigenous peoples is complex, painful in many ways, given the history of colonization and dispossession, and ongoing. But there is a growing recognition of the depth and importance of Indigenous culture, and a growing movement towards reconciliation, respect, and acknowledgement of the truth of that history. Now let us turn to how Australia is governed, because Australia has a fascinating and quite distinctive political system. Australia is a federal parliamentary democracy and a constitutional monarchy, which means it is a democracy with a parliament that makes the laws, but it also officially recognizes the British monarch, currently King Charles III, as the head of state. In practice, this role is largely ceremonial, and Australia is governed by its own elected politicians. The country is divided into 6 states: New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland, Western Australia, South Australia, and Tasmania, and 2 major territories, the Australian Capital Territory and the Northern Territory. Each state has its own government and its own parliament, but they all operate within the framework of the national federal government in Canberra. Australia has a compulsory voting system, meaning that every eligible citizen is legally required to vote in elections, which is one of the reasons Australia consistently has some of the highest voter turnout rates in the democratic world. The political system is stable, transparent, and well established, and Australia consistently ranks among the top countries in the world for democracy, rule of law, and freedom of the press. Let us talk economics, because Australia's economy is one of the strongest and most resilient in the world. Australia is a high-income country with a GDP that places it among the top 15 largest economies on Earth. One of the most remarkable things about the Australian economy is its extraordinary streak of uninterrupted economic growth. For nearly 3 decades, from 1991 to 2020, Australia did not experience a single recession, a record that is almost without precedent in the modern economic world. The Australian economy is driven by several major sectors. Mining is enormous. Australia is one of the world's leading exporters of iron ore, coal, gold, natural gas, and a whole range of other minerals and resources. And the mining sector has been a colossal engine of economic growth, particularly as demand from China and other Asian markets has surged. Agriculture is also hugely important. Australia is one of the world's major producers and exporters of wheat, beef, wool, and wine, and Australian agricultural products are shipped all over the world. Tourism is a massive industry. Millions of people travel to Australia every year to see the Great Barrier Reef, explore the Outback, visit the iconic cities, and experience the unique culture and wildlife. And the education sector is a surprisingly significant part of the economy. Australia is one of the world's most popular destinations for international students, attracting hundreds of thousands of students from Asia, Europe, and beyond to its world-class universities. The currency is the Australian dollar, and Australians enjoy one of the highest average incomes in the world. Worker rights are strong, the minimum wage is among the highest in the world, and the social safety net, including universal health care through a system called Medicare, a robust public pension system, and strong unemployment support, means that Australians are well protected from the worst economic misfortunes. The overall result is a population that enjoys an extremely high standard of living, with excellent access to health care, education, housing, and all the things that make life comfortable and fulfilling. Which brings us beautifully to the topic of lifestyle, because the Australian way of life is something that people all over the world genuinely admire and, honestly, envy. Australians are famous for their laid-back, optimistic, and outdoor-oriented approach to life, and that reputation is absolutely earned. The climate in most parts of Australia, particularly the coastal cities where most people live, is warm, sunny, and inviting for much of the year, and Australians take full advantage of it. The beach is central to Australian culture in a way that is hard to fully convey to someone who has never experienced it. Australians surf, they swim, they play beach cricket, they have barbecues by the water, they walk their dogs along the sand at sunset, and they generally treat the ocean as a second home. The backyard barbecue, or Barbie as Australians call it, is basically a national institution, a gathering ritual that brings families and friends together with sausages, cold drinks, and easy laughter. Sport is absolutely enormous in Australian culture. Australians are passionate, competitive, and deeply proud of their sporting achievements, and they punch well above their weight internationally for a country of only 27 million people. Cricket is almost a religion. The summer test match series, especially the Ashes against England, generates an intensity of national passion that is hard to describe. Rugby, both rugby union and rugby league, commands enormous followings, and the Australian national teams in both codes are among the best in the world. And then there's Australian rules football, or footy, as it is universally known, a uniquely Australian sport that was invented here and is played nowhere else in the world with the same passion. Watching a packed MCG, the Melbourne Cricket Ground, one of the largest stadiums on Earth, on Grand Final Day, is one of the great sporting experiences that this world has to offer. Australia has also produced a remarkable number of world-class athletes in swimming, tennis, cycling, athletics, and many other disciplines, and the country has a proud Olympic tradition, having hosted the Games twice, in Melbourne in 1956 and Sydney in 2000. The culture itself is warm, self-deprecating, egalitarian, and genuinely welcoming. Australians famously do not like people who put on airs or think themselves better than others. There's a strong cultural tradition of cutting down anyone who gets too big for their boots, a quality Australians refer to as the tall poppy syndrome. There's a directness and an honesty to the Australian character that can sometimes catch outsiders off guard. Australians will tell you what they think, usually with a grin and a laugh, but it comes from a place of genuine warmth and friendliness. The classic Australian greeting, "G'day, mate," is not just a cliche. It is actually a reflection of a real cultural openness and friendliness that you encounter wherever you go in the country. And then there is the sense of humor. Dry, ironic, self-aware, and absolutely irresistible. Now, we absolutely cannot talk about Australia without spending some serious time on the wildlife, because Australian wildlife is in a category entirely its own. Because of Australia's millions of years of geographic isolation from the rest of the world, evolution here took a completely different path, and the result is a collection of animals that are found absolutely nowhere else on Earth. Let us start with the most iconic, the kangaroo. Kangaroos are marsupials, meaning they carry and nurture their young in a pouch, and they are the symbol of Australia, appearing on the national coat of arms. There are actually more kangaroos in Australia than there are people. It is estimated that there are around 50 million kangaroos in the country, nearly double the human population. Then there is the koala, arguably the most beloved animal in the world, a fluffy, sleepy, tree-hugging marsupial that spends most of its life dozing in eucalyptus trees, surviving almost entirely on eucalyptus leaves. Koalas are incredibly popular with international visitors, and they are genuinely one of the most endearing creatures you will ever encounter. But Australian wildlife gets stranger and more wonderful the more you look at it. There's the platypus, one of the most bizarre animals in the natural world, a mammal that lays eggs, has a duckbill, beaver tail, and otter feet, and whose males have venomous spurs on their hind legs. When European scientists first received a preserved specimen of a platypus in the late 18th century, they were convinced it was a hoax, a clever fake assembled from the parts of different animals. Then there is the echidna, another egg-laying mammal covered in spines like a hedgehog that shuffles through the bush in complete defiance of most of the rules of mammalian biology. The wombat, the Tasmanian devil, the wallaby, the quokka, this happiest-looking animal in the world, living on Rottnest Island near Perth, and countless others make Australia's wildlife uniquely extraordinary. It should be noted, however, that Australia also has a rather formidable reputation when it comes to dangerous animals, and that reputation is, to be fair, somewhat earned. Australia is home to more species of venomous snakes than any other country in the world, including the inland taipan, considered the most venomous snake on Earth. It has funnel-web spiders that can kill a human being. It has saltwater crocodiles, the largest reptiles on Earth, lurking in the tropical north. It has box jellyfish in the ocean that are among the most venomous creatures alive. Blue-ringed octopuses the size of a golf ball with enough venom to kill 26 adults. Sharks patrol the coasts, great white sharks. But here's the important context. While all of this is real, the actual risk to visitors and even to residents is extremely small, because Australians are well aware of what they share their country with, and they manage those risks very effectively. The dangerous wildlife is part of what makes Australia so endlessly fascinating and extraordinary. It is a place where nature is raw, powerful, and utterly uncompromising. And that is part of its wild and irreplaceable magic. Before we wrap up, let us go through some of the most interesting and surprising facts about Australia, because this country is just full of them. Did you know that Australia is the only country in the world that is also an entire continent? We mentioned this at the start, but it is worth repeating because it is just so remarkable. Did you know that Australia has more kangaroos than people? Roughly 50 million kangaroos for 27 million humans. Did you know that the Aboriginal Australians have one of the oldest continuously practiced artistic traditions in the world, with rock art that dates back over 28,000 years? Did you know that Australia is home to more than 80% of its plant and animal species found nowhere else on Earth? Meaning that if you want to see a koala, a kangaroo, or a platypus in the wild, Australia is the only place on Earth you can do it. Did you know that Australians are among the most well-traveled people in the world? Not surprising when you consider how far away from everywhere else they are. Did you know that Australia has the world's longest fence, the dingo fence, stretching over 5,600 kilometers, built to protect livestock in the south from the wild dingo dogs of the north? Did you know that Australia consistently ranks in the top tier of global indices measuring happiness, well-being, quality of life, and human development? All of this adds up to a picture of a country that is genuinely one of the most remarkable places on Earth. A nation of extraordinary natural beauty, rich cultural diversity, vibrant cities, unique wildlife, economic strength, and warm, welcoming people. Australia is a country that rewards curiosity, that surprises you at every turn, and that gets under your skin in the best possible way. Whether you are drawn by the beaches, the wildlife, the cities, the indigenous culture, the food, the sport, or simply the sheer scale and wildness of the landscape, Australia has something for everyone, and it delivers on every promise it makes. It is a country that is easy to fall in love with and very hard to leave. I genuinely believe that everyone should experience Australia at least once in their life, because there is nowhere quite like it anywhere in the world. And if you have already been, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That deep, warm, aching love for a place that gets into your heart and never quite leaves. That is Australia. That is what Down Under does to you. All right, that is going to do it for today's deep dive into the incredible country of Australia. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed putting it together. If you found this video valuable, if you learned something new, if it made you smile or made you want to book a flight to Sydney, please give it a big thumbs up. It genuinely helps more people find this content, and it means the world to this channel. And if you're not already subscribed, now is the perfect time, because we are going on a brand new country adventure very soon, and you do not want to miss it. Drop a comment down below and tell me, have you ever been to Australia? Is it on your bucket list? And which country should we cover next? I read every single comment, and I love hearing from you. Thank you so much for watching. Stay curious, keep exploring, and I will see you in the next one. G'day, and while we are still here together for just a moment longer, I want to share a few more things about Australia that I think truly capture the depth and magic of this extraordinary place, because there's always more to say about a country as big and as rich as this one. Let us talk a little more about the food culture, because Australian cuisine is something that does not always get the international recognition it deserves. For a long time, Australian food was somewhat unfairly dismissed as simple pub grub, meat pies, fish and chips, the classic sausage sizzle. And while all of those things are real and genuinely beloved, the full picture of Australian food culture is so much more complex and exciting than that. The multicultural makeup of the country has produced one of the most dynamic and diverse food scenes in the world. In Melbourne and Sydney in particular, you can eat your way through virtually every cuisine on Earth. Incredible Vietnamese poiro in Richmond, Melbourne, some of the best Italian food outside of Italy and Carlton, extraordinary Chinese yum cha in Chinatown, stunning Japanese omakase, world-class Indian curries, brilliant Lebanese mezze, and everything in between. Australian chefs have become internationally renowned, and the country's produce, the fresh seafood, the premium beef, the magnificent wines from regions like the Barossa Valley, the Margaret River, and the Yarra Valley, is the envy of the culinary world. A glass of South Australian Shiraz or a Western Australian Chardonnay alongside a perfectly cooked barramundi or a plate of fresh Moreton bay bugs. That is Australian dining at its finest, and it is something truly special. Let us also take a moment to appreciate the sheer scale and variety of experiences that Australia offers to travelers and adventurers. The Whitsunday Islands, 74 stunning islands scattered across the Coral Sea off the coast of Queensland, offer some of the most spectacular sailing, snorkeling, and island hopping experiences on Earth. The Kimberley region in Western Australia is a wild, remote, and jaw-droppingly beautiful landscape of ancient gorges, waterfalls, and red rock country that feels like it belongs to another planet. Tasmania, the island state off Australia's southern coast, is a place of extraordinary natural beauty with vast wilderness areas, dramatic mountains, pristine rivers, and a rich history that makes it uniquely compelling. The Daintree rainforest in Queensland is one of the oldest tropical rainforests in the world, predating even the Amazon, and it is home to an astonishing diversity of plant and animal life. Kakadu National Park in the Northern Territory is a UNESCO World Heritage Site covering nearly 20,000 square kilometers. Containing one of the richest concentrations of Aboriginal rock art in the world and supporting an extraordinary diversity of wildlife, including saltwater and freshwater crocodiles, over 280 species of birds, and vast seasonal wetlands that transform the landscape with the cycles of the monsoon. Every corner of Australia reveals something new, something breathtaking, something that reminds you just how vast and varied and wonderful this country truly is. And then there is the night sky. One of the often overlooked wonders of Australia is the extraordinary quality of its night sky, particularly in the remote interior, where there is no light pollution to obscure the view. In the Australian Outback, on a clear night, you can look up and see the Milky Way in all its full, breathtaking glory, a river of stars stretching from horizon to horizon, in a way that most people who have spent their lives in cities have genuinely never witnessed. The Southern Cross, a constellation visible only from the southern hemisphere, shines there above you, the same stars that have guided Indigenous Australians across the landscape for tens of thousands of years, and that appear on the Australian national flag as a symbol of national identity. There is something profoundly moving about standing in the red desert under that sky, surrounded by the ancient silence of the Outback, and feeling the full weight of geological and human time pressing down on you from above and below. It is one of the most powerful experiences this world has to offer, and Australia is one of the few places where you can still truly have it. Australia also has a remarkable and deeply important relationship with the sea, not just in terms of the beaches and the surf, but in a more fundamental way that has shaped the identity of the country. The ocean is not just a recreational space for Australians, it is a cultural touchstone, a source of national pride, and a constant presence in the national imagination. Australian surf culture, which emerged in the mid-20th century and has since influenced beach culture all over the world, is one of the country's most distinctive contributions to global popular culture. The image of the bronzed Australian surfer riding perfect waves at dawn with nothing but ocean and sky and possibility ahead, it is an image that has captivated people worldwide. And it captures something true about how Australians relate to their natural environment. The volunteer surf lifesaving movement, the iconic red and yellow flags, and the lifeguards who keep Australian beaches safe is another expression of that deeply communal and outward-looking relationship with the ocean. It is one of the largest volunteer organizations in Australia, and it speaks to the community spirit and civic mindedness that runs quietly and powerfully through Australian culture. What I hope comes through in everything we have talked about today is that Australia is a country of extraordinary contrasts and extraordinary depth. It is ancient and modern at the same time, one of the world. As the oldest cultures exists alongside one of the world's most dynamic and forward-looking economies. It is vast and empty in some places, vibrant and crowded with energy in others. It is wild and dangerous and deeply, strangely beautiful. It is a country shaped by water, by the oceans that surround it and isolate it. And yet it contains within its heart one of the driest and most arid landscapes on Earth. It is a young nation in many respects, still working through the complexities of its colonial history and its relationship with its indigenous peoples. And yet it rests on a foundation of human habitation and cultural continuity that stretches back further than almost anywhere else on Earth. It is, in every sense of the word, unique, a place that cannot be compared to anywhere else because there is nowhere else quite like it. And that ultimately is what makes Australia so endlessly compelling, so deeply worth knowing, and so utterly